Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 12 of Daffy Roundtable. Before I introduce my guest for today, I just want to say happy holidays and Merry Christmas, everybody. We're nearing the end of the year, so I want to say thank you to everyone who joined us this year, regardless of whether you listen to one episode or all of them. I truly appreciate the support. Thank you. My guest for today is somebody who took matters into his own hands after realizing that access to fish medicine had become nearly impossible here in Canada. After his daughter's Bera got sick and he couldn't find any medicine, the veterinary doctor Kristopher Chandroo was left with no option but to open a lab in his house and begin creating fish medicine. In this episode, we find out what were the driving forces that made this endeavor happen. We talk about consciousness in fish and the next steps for the Canadian fish vet. Without further ado, please help me welcome Dr. Kris, the Canadian fish vet. Dr. Kris, thank you for coming on.
Thank you, Fatty.
Yeah, I'm super excited to do this. So first of all, can you tell us basically how did the Canadian fish vet start? Actually, so let's take a step back.
Yeah.
Before the Canadian fish vet, you said you do mobile, like you work with dogs and cats, but through a mobile app, sort of.
Yeah.
Can you explain a little bit about that? How you got into that process, and that came before the Canadian fish vet?
You got it. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, let's walk through the story, and then we'll kind of get to how the Canadian fish vet came to be.
Yeah. One thing led to another. You know, I was practicing out west. I came to Ottawa,
Nice.
and then I was at a wonderful clinic named Orleans Vet, and I was there. And one day, this is a brick and mortar clinic.
Okay,
you know,
beautiful.
just what you think of when you think of a vet clinic. And one day, I was in the back room in the pharmacy, and I was looking at cabinets, thinking about something, and all of a sudden, everything went sideways, like my vision.
Okay.
Like
you
changed.
just like your vision changed,
Yes.
or something fell on you.
I took off my glasses and started rubbing it,
Okay.
my shirt, and I remember I asked my colleague, and his name was Kurt, do you see something different there? Is it just me? And he goes, no, man, it's you. So I go to the mall up, who makes the glasses? Who makes the prescription? Not an ophthalmologist, the optometrist.
Optometrist, yeah, okay, yeah.
And she gets really quiet, and she says, you know, I think your retina detached, and you should go to the hospital. And so she goes, now. And I go,
Now, like it's urgent, yeah.
Yeah, and so I go to the hospital, and I promise you, this is leading to why I'm a mobile.
Oh, no, yeah, for sure, yeah.
You know,
yeah,
and
for
then
sure.
I go to the hospital, and then I meet Dr. Britton, amazing ophthalmologist, or his intern at least. And they looked at the eye, they confirmed it, and they say, well, you need surgery now.
No.
Yeah. And so before I know it, I'm in surgery. I'm getting a silicone band placed around my eyeball to try to push the retina back into the back of the eye so I don't lose vision. And I have the surgery, and I say, well, hey, when can I go back to work, right?
Yeah.
And they're like, well, yeah, next week you should be fine.
Okay, so
It
no,
wasn't.
it wasn't fun. Okay.
It was
Okay.
months and months of
Wow.
recovery. Like I had a zombie eye, and every time, like it looked like a zombie eye, and every time I would turn my head quickly, I would get this migraine, this headache. And so I had to, eventually, I gave up my spot at,
This is the one you were practicing back in.
Orleans. This is in Ottawa.
Okay.
And
okay.
and you do anything long enough, and you start to get your own take on it, your own opinions on it.
For sure.
And so I definitely had my own take and my own opinions of just that just suited me, my personality. And for me, it was like become a mobile vet. And why do that? Well, I did some research, and really, other than one of my good friends who at that time was doing like palliative, she does like this really advanced palliative care. There wasn't anyone doing like medicine, problem solving, long term, sit down, connect, talk an hour with someone on one thing and be in their home, be a guest.
History, right?
That's right. And so we started it, Tara, Brazo, and I, and before we knew it, it just took off because it was an unmet need.
Right.
And so it was driving Miss Daisy. You know, I had a patch on my eye. I couldn't drive, and she was driving, and so we just started. So we started it because we needed a change, wanted something different, felt that there was a different way for us to involve ourselves in the veterinary industry as practitioners, and just made it our own.
So the way it works is people go onto the app and say, take an appointment, and you drive to their house and you go meet their dog or cat, or have you done any other animals, or mostly dogs and cats?
Yeah, mostly dogs and cats for the vet mobile. We've occasionally seen other species. We've done one tank side aquarium so far in Ottawa. And so they find us. They find us through YouTube. They find us through wherever, and or it's mostly through word of mouth. And they're like, I like that. I want that.
It's easier.
Yeah.
For sure. So you are on YouTube for the mobile app?
Yeah. But, when we started the first year, this is all before coronavirus, of course, we would bring camera gear and stuff with us, and we would video for some people what we were doing, and we would create stories, because that's what we really felt. It was getting into people's lives, being a storyteller. Who is this companion in their lives, learning who they were. That's what I love about it.
No, for sure. You're not waiting in line at the vet office, and as mentioned earlier, there's no stress on the animals, and you're meeting the people you're meeting the animal as the animal is, not in a stressful situation.
Well, what it is, like you're a guest in someone's home. Yeah. So the way that you are is different, your demeanor is different. Sure. You're truly you feel like a guest in their home. Okay. And so there's a way that you walk, there's a way that you move, there's a way that you talk as a guest. And I think that animals pick up on that. And so it's a very relaxed, natural way to access people and their pets and help them.
Awesome. That's amazing. I love that. Okay. Yeah. And then so from there, you did that for a couple of years, and then you opened up the Canadian fish vets.
Yeah, it's a story. We did it for 2-3 years. I mean, fish have come in and out of my life. I mean, if I have to define, I was thinking about it today. There was 4, I think, major defining things.
We need to hear them. Okay.
Yeah, from here, and then and there's some of them are like good, happy stories. Some of them are sad stories, but they're all good in that they've just led to what's happening right now with Canadian Fish Vet. I mean, I could start with like the most recent, which is like how
it started.
Canadian Fish Vet, how this whole thing got started. It's been a year in development and then just launched, and it's just like the mobile vet care. Yeah. It's the same thing. Like when we launched that, we didn't advertise, we didn't do anything. People found us, and it was word of mouth. It was a true unmet need.
And this was about a year ago now?
For the vet mobile, this is like going about 3.5 years now. Okay. And for the fish service that we have, same thing. We just put it out. Okay. And people found us. It was an unmet need. An unmet need. And so we're just finding these niches where there's this mesh between people who really desire care for their companions, regardless of the species. People can have a relationship. Doesn't matter if you got scales, doesn't matter if you're warm-blooded, cold-blooded, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. There's this like naturalized thing that happens between a person who cares and this companion that's in their life, and it's beautiful. It brings out humanity, like the truth of who we are, right?
Yeah,
right?
Exactly. Yeah.
And so with Canadian Fish Vet, I mean, that's how it started. It actually started with like just a very human story. So pandemic hit. So when was this? Last year? Last spring?
Yeah, like March of...
Last March.
Something like that, yeah.
What am I doing last March? So Canadian Fish Vet, very human story. It was like 2020. I'm thinking 2020, 2020, it's going to be, I had a vision issue. 2020 is going to be my year.
Yes.
All right.
It's time.
A good year.
Yeah.
Everything clarified. All of this turned out to be true, but not in the way
that you were thinking.
Oh my God. Not in the way I was thinking at all. So what am I doing? Pandemic's happening. We're hearing things through news. How do I know that coronavirus is going to be a real thing?
And how long is it staying for?
I started to get emails from my licensing body that was like, if you have any surgical masks, please consider donating them to your hospital. And this is before everything hit. So I was starting to get a feeling
that it was getting big.
It was getting big.
This was, wow, okay.
This was prior to any toilet paper disappearing.
This was over before, so you kind of had like a hint that it was coming.
3 weeks.
Wow.
I clued into it about 3 weeks before things started to disappear. Okay. And what I started thinking was, if this happens, A, I have got a family that I want to take care of.
For sure.
My protocols, I need to figure stuff out. B, for a fact, I know of patients I already know and have who are with my clinic that they need care. All these little kitty cats, all these dogs, they need care. And if care was to shut down, that for me wasn't acceptable, right? So what I did is started researching, Stayed up late at night, would figure out my protocols, figure out the front room, figure out disinfectants, figure out just all the PPE. We made the assumption that it would be, yeah, he does that.
I think he wants to be in
He wants to be in the shot.
Yes.
Come on, Wesley. Here, I'll pick him up. Come on, big boy. Whoop.
There we go. Okay.
Wesley.
Everybody
Wesley.
meet Wesley.
Everybody meet Wesley, the who is actually a toy poodle, but with COVID hair. So yeah. A friend of mine, a client of mine, is going to help us groom him pretty soon. Yeah, with
He's
COVID
adorable.
hair.
Yeah.
He's a cool dude. And trim his nails. And so like this whole pandemic is happening, and ended up being the least
Of your worries.
of my worries.
Okay. Amazing.
Least of my worries, right? Because what the traditional way to say it would be, I had unexpectedly joined the statistical ranks of a pandemic divorce.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't even like using that word really, because it's just not. Sorry, it's not accurate to kind of like my feelings about it. But that happened.
I'm sorry to hear that.
You know what? It was just one of those things where, before you know it, so many things in your world, in your life, will change. You didn't expect it to. A lot of things about your future that were kind of written they evaporate. And all of a sudden, just a relationship had run its cycle. And by the way, when I talk about this, it's in no way, shape, or form am I referring to anything about my my ex, my children's mom.
Yeah.
But I will talk about because it leads to Canadian Fish Vet, the institution of divorce.
Okay.
What that is like, what that system is like.
Yeah.
It's not for normal people. It's not for normal people. And so that happened. So midway through all of this, I'm kind of like, this isn't me. This isn't for me. Separation, everyone has their own right to make autonomous choices, and that's okay. But the methodology that you go through, no. This is not good. So
Okay.
halfway through this, in the summertime, my daughter has a beta. And I got her this beta because I needed to,
Distract her.
they're doing good, and that's a whole other story. And then so we got this beta. It's this beautiful little platinum beta, this little fish. It's her pet.
Okay.
I didn't know it at the time, but he came with a little bit of an illness that blossomed into a larger illness, and so we needed to make him better. Pardon me. And Daddy, can you help my beta Juice? His name is Juice, and Juice Junior. And I'm
Juice
like,
Junior.
yeah, Juice Junior. I'm like, of course we can. So I go to PetSmart. And I look for medication, like what I used to get as a kid. Go in the pet store, get some medication. Nothing. Yeah. I'm like, oh, okay, it's coronavirus. So it's just a distribution thing. We were having the same issues for some stuff in the clinic. I went to go visit my parents in London, Ontario. I go to visit that PetSmart. Nothing. So I'm like, what's up with this?
And this is around 2020.
2020.
Okay.
This is 2020.
Okay.
Summertime 2020. I'm like, and I can't fail this little girl. With her little beta.
That's the only thing. Yeah.
No, right? Yeah. This little beta is is of equal emotional significance to the kitty cat, to
anything.
the dog,
to
anything,
to
anything.
Yeah.
These
and
children.
First pet or one of the first few pets, they're gonna. It's either are you gonna get more into animals or you're gonna decide it's not for you. Like that's a pivotal moment for a child, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, it's a pivotal moment.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's a pivotal moment of when the chips are down, they become and enact and become shepherds and guide and help
For sure.
these companions.
Definitely.
Right? And whether it be a fish or whether it's a dog. Mm-hmm. And so there's no meds anywhere. So I start like everyone else Googling. And I'm like, and that's when I found out through looking at the message boards. For a couple of years, all the fish meds were removed by Health Canada. I do understand why they did it. But I'm here to say, as a veterinarian with like the feet in the trenches, day to day working, we weren't informed. Like there was no.
That's
direct...
actually, okay. No, go ahead. I actually had a question. Did you guys know? So I guess you answered. You guys didn't know.
No.
And then
none.
What do you think of them kind of just banning them instead of regulating them as well?
So my major issue, especially as a vet, but it also goes into my relationship with this species. Before I was a vet, when I was in graduate school working with this species, is if you are a sentient being And therefore, if you can suffer, if you have the ability to suffer, and you are being taken care of by people, there's an onus of an animal welfare standard that we, as veterinarians and as people, should have.
Of course.
And so to take away all the medication, but then not put in place or implement a plan or an education plan to like, hello, veterinary industry, there are hundreds of thousands of these fish that are pets.
And they're going to get sick.
And they're going to get sick in your province. And all of a sudden, there's now no education or awareness to provision. For me, essentially, it was just a huge animal welfare hole, a big unmet need. And so I was sitting there with my daughter, and I looked at her, and I said, someone's got to take care of this. Someone's got to fix this. And it was at that moment that I was like, well, this someone is me.
Why not me? Yeah.
It's me because, and what happened was, to relate it back to this whole, changing of relationship and family law and all this stuff, what happened was it became something that I grabbed onto. Because it became something that instead of insecurity, instead of divisiveness, instead of a lack, instead of destroying, crumbling, taking away, it was something of building and growth and creativity and wholeness.
Yeah.
And I needed that.
Yeah.
And so this whole Canadian fish vet started through this whole process of just needing to do this. And sometimes people ask, why is it free? Like, you go on the website and my analysis is free. It simply is a way of creating something that is abundant and real and different than my recent experience qualitatively. Like, however you want to think about it, whether it's like qualitatively, spiritually, whatever. It's just something that I could make to help. And it was a single phrase that would just make it would just like pain into purpose. So you got to put it somewhere.
That's exactly it. That's very interesting.
You got to put it somewhere,
and again, like also making it free is probably getting you a lot more data than you would if you were charging, right?
This is the truth.
Yeah.
I learn every single day. I'm getting such data of what's your water quality, what are your parameters, what are the common illnesses in this local area that we're seeing, what are the common species that are being kept. I don't think that data is, at least by like a veterinarian in this area, has been done.
Probably not in any area. I don't think there has been, even before COVID and even before the regulations by Health Canada to remove the fish medication, there has still, I think, been a lack of care. Maybe because we had the medicines in store, there was nobody really taking their fish to the vets, or maybe it's just that idea that it's just a fish that it'll die and I'll get a new one. But there was always kind of a lack of not understanding, but maybe amount of people studying or wanting to study fish.
Yes.
And I'm sure that there's many reasons for that. One being you can't really touch them. You can't.
Yes.
You're viewing them from behind like an aquarium or in water.
Yeah.
So obviously that makes it a lot harder than dealing with dogs and cats. So what was your motivation to kind of, it is going to be me to do this?
Okay, so, and are they deserving of animal welfare? You can value them many different ways, right? But my particular way is, if you have the ability to experience fear, psychological stress, or pain, then that's in my wheelhouse. That's something that I have the ability to engage and help. Sure. And where did that happen? Well, we're going back to the 90s now. We're going back to like 98, 99, and I was looking for something to do. I didn't know what I was gonna do, so I hopped in my Mazda 323. It was the 90s, of course, so I had I think Smashing Pumpkins in the 5 CD disc player.
That's amazing. Okay.
Up the highway I went from my parents' house in London, Ontario, and ended up in Guelph. I ended up in this building, animal and poultry science, and started looking at the walls of stuff to do, different professors you could work with and stuff like that. I just finished an undergrad degree. I didn't know what I was doing. And then it just so happened there was one guy, Rich Macchia. I saw his name. He did something on something about fish physiology, which I was interested in, and knocked on his door, and he happened to be there. Later did I know it was kind of rare to knock on his door. He was actually there. Yeah. And knocked on, and he was there, and he just happened to be looking for someone. I didn't have the best grades. I didn't have the best grades in the world back then, but we connected. You know, I was just this kid.
Love of fish.
Love of fish. I was just this kid. I showed up, the right time, right place, and from there we entered into this very unique project, which was a discussion and research about the existence of pain, stress, and fear in fish in terms of sentience. Are they actually, do they actually have consciousness, and do these states of consciousness, is it something that directs their behavior? Does it exist? And I have to tell you, trying to do this work in the late 90s, it's exactly what you said, Fatty. It was like, it's just a fish. Why would you even study that?
Right,
You know, I remember walking the halls and I would tell,
Surrounded
some people what I was doing, and some of them would like kind of smirk. They would be like, "What are you doing?"
You're studying fish.
Yeah, what are you doing? What is this?
Why
would you? What is the point of that? Why would you even do it? It isn't a legitimate focus to study. And then 3 years later, I couldn't. No matter how much I tried, I could not make a compelling argument of why a fish could not feel pain, could not experience stress, or could not reasonably be sentient.
So you could not make an argument for why they are not?
Yes.
So you believe that they are?
Yes.
Perfect, okay.
And there's reasons for that. And those reasons dip into, there's an evolutionary part to this of what is a nervous system, what are the properties of a nervous system, how does a nervous system function, at least in mammals. There is a behavioral component, there is a neurochemical component, and bringing all of this information together, I felt the arguments were really compelling. It is now 2021. I haven't seen anyone to this day produce any real work that has proven it otherwise. People have tried, and it's quite easy to pick apart those arguments. Quite easy. There's no data.
Somebody I think it was in the UK, just announced that they have officially proven, I think it was octopuses and crabs and all of that are indeed sentient.
One of my clients told me about that today.
So there you go. So they're struggling to prove that they're not.
You know what we call that? We call that convergent evolution. So as mammals, we have a neocortex. We, for various reasons, believe it's the thalamocortical system where consciousness is experienced or generated. But with convergent evolution, what that means is that even though your brain isn't exactly formed like a person's brain, is not the function. If consciousness is part of the inherent function of that part of the nervous system, then could it not show up in other ways for the same function? In the same ways, convergent evolution. And
that's very interesting.
Yeah, and some of us would say, yes, it makes sense. Long story short, some of us believe that consciousness, in fact, is evolutionary, very old. Has been around for a long time.
Way longer than humans.
Way longer than people. It doesn't, and people are just like, you could call it like the peak, but it doesn't mean that it wasn't there in different forms, shapes, complexities before humans hit this stage. It's a very, what I would call anthropocentric way of viewing things, to believe that only humans could be conscious and nobody else.
For sure.
Nothing else,
Yeah. Something to do with power as well, right? Like if we believe we're the only one that are conscious, we could put all these animals as below us. Or
very convenient to do that.
Exactly. That's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I see that. All right. So in that case, back to the Canadian fish vet story. So you told your daughter, I'm gonna be the one to do this.
Yeah.
And where did it go from there?
All right. So now there's no medication. So it's like.
I was making sure Wesley's not intervening.
So now there's no medication. There's no medication anywhere. And so it's like, well, how do we fix that? And so I'm like, okay, well, we gotta make a lab. We gotta figure out how to do this. And so then, just like anyone else, I would Google. And then what do you find when you Google? You find doses and applications all across the everywhere. And some people say use this dose, people say use that dose, and you would use it in the food or in the water or during a bath. There's just no consistency. It's not to say that these things don't work. It's just there's no consistency.
There's no one protocol for how these things are done.
That's right, and the dose rates are all over the place. So, started educating myself, and found certain texts I could read, and even within those texts, dose rates are all over the place. Medications that you would use, are all over the place, and so even with treating my daughter's own beta, there was uncertainty. What's the dose? Is it too much? Is it too little? Here's the temperature of the water. Here's the characteristics. What's the frequency? How many days?
There's so many variables that people aren't considering.
So many variables.
For sure.
And so I wanted to, as I would do for any dog or cat, standardize according to what fits the needs of most patients.
And this has not been done before. As far as you found online.
Not in a way that is accessible to pet owners.
Okay.
Yeah, to fish keepers.
So is there another maybe like set of like literature that humans like not humans humans that like pet keepers don't have access to that vets do?
Not much.
Not much.
I had to seek it out. I had to find it. I found one place. There's actually a fish vet in Australia,
Awesome.
Richmond Low. Cool dude. He had a YouTube channel, which is how I found him.
Okay.
And then I called him up, and he constructed a lecture for a couple hours for me and Tara. Tara's a registered vet technician who is essential in building 100x Vet, like the mobile and Canadian Fish Vet.
It's called, sorry, what was the name of the?
100x Vet.
Yeah, we just always said so 100x Vet if you're not aware. Yeah.
And so he did this online lecture for us. We learned from there. We learned from text, and then I figured out what tools I had access to, and then I started to put it together. And then I contacted some lab companies to get me gear to make certain medications in the right form, combine them in certain pharmacies, and I heard a lot of no's. Like there's a lot of people who didn't want to have anything to do with it.
Yeah.
And then I just kept, what do they say? No is just the first. It's just the first no you're gonna get
before the yes.
And so I just kept on going. And I found a few key people. One of the labs, to get beakers and stuff to make liquid medications and stuff, they're kind of like, no, we don't want to give you anything because you just want to order masks and PPE for coronavirus. Okay. And I had to write back and be like, no, I don't want any of your stuff. I already have my own stuff. I want some beakers and my flasks and.
So these are things, okay.
Yeah. And so right here on this table is where we would don our PPE, figure out certain dilutions, figure out dosages. And in my house right now, what do I have? They're all quarantine tanks.
Quarantine tanks.
All my tanks are quarantine tanks.
Yeah, no, for sure.
Because we had to, how does it dissolve? What does it look like? Here's the other thing. Whenever I send a medication home for a dog or cat, this is the label, this is the bottle, this is exactly how to use it, this is the side effects, this is what you look for, this is how you know it's successful, here's the dose rate, here's the frequency, here's the amount that you use, right? Fish medicine.
Easy.
Right. And so I needed to show its safety before I could prescribe it.
Prescribing, yeah.
Yeah. And so all that happened, and so it took about a year to put everything together, from educating ourselves, which is we're still in process of, and then developing the medications. And basically, what we tried to do is, let's say, whatever was previously available, manufacturer did some good work. So, for example, you had stuff like Genuine Cure, you had products from CChem, Ikari, basically
stuff like ICX.
Yeah. And so what we did is sort of make the veterinary equivalents to those.
So you've already recreated these products.
Yeah, we've taken the ingredients from the literature, the scientific literature, and put that together in the right ratios and done it that way. And so
very interesting.
Yeah. And we're still doing it. We get requests monthly in terms of, hey, about this, how about that? Here's my application. And we're like, yes, because the whole point of this is to really serve the needs of people and their companions. And so what people need is what we're going to try to do.
Awesome. So let's walk through like the process of how this works. So I have a sick fish.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go online. I'm gonna go to CanadianFishVet.com?
Yeah.
Is that, yeah? Okay,
Yeah.
CanadianFishVet.com.
You know what it was almost
And-
called?
What?
It was almost called we were coming up. Okay,
So
I played in bands
long.
before you played in bands.
Yeah.
So I was almost so the musical influence. I was almost gonna be called the Devonian era,
Devonian, yeah.
which is where like all those Cambrionic fish were coming
The
through.
Devonian
All
fish,
the
yeah.
Devonian fish, and
Yeah.
we're gonna use that for the logo and all this stuff. It never ended up happening. We ran out of time, but that was some of the inspiration.
You know what? It's
Yeah.
a great name, but
Yeah.
I think this might be easier for people's location. You know what I mean? Like when someone Googles, I need a fish vet, like Canadian Fish Vet.
This
right
is
there.
exactly what happens.
That's it, yeah.
Canada, we don't have meds. I need a vet. I have fish. Canadian fish.
Vet. Yeah, no, it's perfect.
Yeah, just for people to find it, right?
No, for sure.
So
So you go. I go on Canadian Fish Vet, and then there's I already looked it up actually. So there's like an option of like get a free
Yeah.
What's the word I'm looking
Yeah,
for?
assessment.
Assessment. Yes, thank you. Like a
Yeah.
free consultation.
Yeah, this is
Right,
what had
yeah.
to happen. How did that even come about?
Yeah.
So, okay, let's think about a normal vet
Vet visit,
clinic,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
It's a clinic. It's got multiple walls. You will walk in. There's a reception. There's a multitude of receptionists. Behind them, on the shelves, there will be various food products or a whole boutique with many products, food, nutraceuticals, collars, leashes, all this equipment. There's a weigh scale. Then you're going to go to the back. There's a gigantic pharmacy for dogs and cats. Heartworm medication, tick medications, antibiotics, anti-inflammatories, analgesics, all of these things. Then you're going to go back. There's a surgery ward. There are multiple exam rooms. You've got kennel staff. You've got registered vet technicians. You have veterinarians. You have an overhead in that. Let's just call it a business. So this is think about a vet clinic in terms of a business.
It
right?
is a business.
Let's just talk about it that way.
Sure, yeah.
You have an overhead. That means that there's a certain cost that has to happen for an exam, and there's a certain cost that needs to be there for medication, food, all these things. These things were designed for dogs and cats. This structure was not designed for aquarium fish. And so the standard procedure of having a fish seen by a vet, and then the structure around that fish in terms of how do I keep my doors open? How do I pay all my staff? How do I pay my stuff? It wasn't built for a fish, right? And so the whole thing with medication being banned, and then that's not being told. The other part of it was like, well, even if we did find out, the education isn't there unless you're really motivated to find and develop it.
To look at it, yeah.
And then the cost structure, if you're gonna, for what's my cost structure? I think I'm $97.50 for a dog or cat to see them, and that doesn't include the mobile fee. And
Is that per hour?
I'm there for between an hour and 90 minutes, yeah. And then,
which I mean, that's a really good. I mean,
yeah.
If you go into a vet clinic, you're paying at least $400, $300 just for him to say hi.
And for my style, it's definitely an in-depth problem-solving discussion that's emotionally intelligent. It's very emotionally intelligent. And so for fish, it's like, well, how do we provide vet care for this species where you can't bring your tank?
Yeah.
Bringing a fish into a clinic is just like bringing any stressed pet, dog or cat they don't want to go into the carrier. It's not their choice. They don't want a car ride. They don't want a waiting room. And for fish, their oxygen supply is running lower.
I was just going to say, and the parameters are changing, right? The ammonia is going up.
Ammonia is going up and up and up. Everything's changing.
Yeah,
so
sure.
the act of the visit itself for a sick patient, it is absolutely putting a type of stress on them, both environmentally, physiologically, that makes it worse for your patient. So it doesn't work out for a normal clinic financially, and it doesn't work for the pet. So how to solve it?
Yeah.
The solution was to meet the fish keeper in the middle.
Right.
And what I mean by that is we developed, so then coronavirus, okay, one more piece of the story. Coronavirus happened. What happened with coronavirus was, for the very first time since the inception of vet medicine in North America, our licensing bodies finally legalized and authorized telemedicine, in which you could prescribe if you have a reasonable, what's called a vet-client-pet relationship. And what that means is, if I have a dialogue and data an understanding, a true understanding of what's in a pet's best interest and what the diagnosis is, I can really reasonably prescribe.
So that was actually another question I had for you. So you are allowed to be doing it, like you are allowed to illegally prescribe medicine to fish.
If it wasn't for the changes through coronavirus, then it wouldn't have been it wouldn't be possible.
Okay.
And so all these changes happened. So Natty wants her beta to be better. Coronavirus happens, changes stuff in the industry, and I'm coming together with like all this stuff that I have to turn into something else. I gotta turn all this turmoil into something very creative. And then there it is. And then now to make it financially work for people, it's like I need the fish keeper to meet me in the middle. And what that means is I need them to pull on the rope. And what that means is the system, we have to think about an algorithm of what do we need to hear from someone and see from someone for me to very in a very efficient way to come up with a reasonable differential diagnosis for their pet fish. And so we developed this form, almost like a survey system, where they can go through, give all the information, upload images and video, and go through a set of history and questions that allow me very quickly to figure out, is this person experienced or not? Do they know how to test their water or not? So is it an environmental problem? They got all that stuff down. A lot of people have all that stuff down. Is there a description, a clinical description that's showing up that's one of the big three, one of the big four categories? And then very quickly through that, being able to, so what do I do for dogs and cats? Then I write down my differentials, then I write down a reasonable plan. I had to think in my brain what all these reasonable plans were ahead of time and been able to have a system where instead of rewriting the book every single time, which is what we do for dogs and cats, have that knowledge so I can like drag,
it's this,
drop,
this, and this.
slide.
It's gonna be this is your solution.
Yes.
Okay.
And the awesome thing about it then is now the price point. Right now it's free for personal reasons. I just wanted it to be, and then it's good research, and I get to learn a lot more.
Exactly, you're collecting data.
Yeah. And so it's now not a dog and cat overhead. It is something specific for the fish industry, and I feel it works, and it does work because we we receive cases daily. Daily.
Right now, awesome. So are you?
No advertising. It just spread through It just spread through people like you, Fatty, and who were just like, "Oh, you're doing that." One of the first people I talked to was actually Canada PetSmart, and they were there, and there's a cool guy there named Zach, and he was like, "Yeah, we need this."
Yeah.
And someone's got to do it.
So.
And so.
And I think.
Yes. Yeah, all word of mouth.
Okay, that's very awesome. Yeah, I know that we at Critter Jungle have also been sending people your way, so hopefully that's been helping as well.
I really like Critter Jungle.
Awesome. it's a great place to be for sure.
Yeah.
So then, before we continue on to the questions, how can the community help you? How can fish keepers help you make these medicines more accessible for us? Do you need more people to be reaching out to you and sending you their pets? Do you need how can the community help you?
Okay, it's been so, okay, here's another thing.
Okay.
Right now, there's kind of a vet shortage. There's not enough vets per pet to go around.
Wow.
And so many of us are, as Gordon Ramsay would say, on Kitchen Nightmares, in the shit.
Yeah.
We're in the shit.
Awesome. I can see that. Yeah. You're a busy man. Yeah,
right?
For sure. Yeah.
Right? I mean, you called me, right? You texted me, and you were on my mind.
No, for sure.
And how long did I take to get back to you?
Yeah, for sure. It took 2-3 weeks for us to schedule this.
I didn't forget about you.
I don't doubt it.
I had to resurface because the amount of incoming right now it's intense.
No, I don't doubt it. I can see it. I can see it in even for sure. Yeah.
And so what it means is that my goal for Canadian Fish Vet would fast turnaround, but now I'm 3-4 days, which is too slow for me.
Okay.
For fish, and I think that so how can I help better? I know that I want to actually, right now, the whole Canadian Fish Vet, it's me and a technician, and we're doing everything ourselves, and so we need help. There's one guy already who, I need people involved in different places in it to help grow it and make it very useful.
Yeah.
Because it's 2 people doing it, and I need people to help grow it. So that's one major thing.
So if you're interested in working with this man or helping him out with the Canadian Fish Vet, reach out. We'll put all of his information both in the show notes and at the end of the show.
Awesome.
But so you're okay. So I guess you have the influx of patients is coming in are perfectly fine then. Okay, so we won't be out. No,
and it's great because for every patient, it's a new interaction, new person. People are giving great feedback and data too. Hey, I did this. My ammonia or nitrite levels went up this, meaning that, we thought that medication maybe wouldn't have affected the nitrifying bacteria, but maybe it did in this scenario. But then you look at the literature, and this is shouldn't. This is homegrown data. This is like building a database, problem solving. Yeah. In the dog and cat world would be, I didn't think that was going to happen, and so the vet's going to call the company, make a report, and it goes on a big list.
Yeah.
It's building this database of what works.
Yeah. How many times has this happened? What breed of dog was it? So I assume the same thing. What species of fish was it? So then, earlier you mentioned like seeing what kind of problems we have commonly here and seeing what kind of fish. So is there a specific, first of all, species that you notice you see more of, and then is there also a specific problem you see more of than everything else? Like, is there maybe like, I want to say a local problem, but is it like
what's gonna be cool for us is like I really want us to do part 2 and part 3.
Oh, we definitely will. No, stay tuned. There's definitely something happening.
And we can get down into some cool cases.
Yeah,
what do people love?
What
do people love? They love their betas.
They love their betas. I was expecting it to be so.
Yeah, they love their betas.
Usually, or my theory on this is if you're keeping a tank usually and have like multiple different community fish, you're not gonna pick them out one by one. You're not gonna know the difference. But when you have a beta, that's an individual that there's a personality there. Yeah. There's usually have names. Yeah. There's so betas are what you're seeing most of.
Betas. Okay, there's betas, and then there's what else? Equal proportion would be we see a lot of tanks of African cichlids.
Okay.
We see a lot of those. Some angelfish, discus.
And those kind of come in as like a tank as a whole, like the tank's going down, or do you still see them as individual fish?
Both. Tank and individual. Yeah, you got it. Okay. Word got out that we see axolotls.
It's because it's on your Instagram.
yeah, it's on the Instagram. It's on the Instagram, and so that's a work in progress for me. It's the same thing. I'm learning it, doing it. How medications work, and
so is it something you were
axolotls? Yeah, unintentionally.
Okay.
But here it is.
There it is.
Who's going to do
working,
it?
Yeah.
Who's going to do it? Someone's got to do it, right?
Awesome.
And so.
I can give you my 2 cents on that after the
episode. Yes, please. Yeah. What else? And then tetras, guppies, all species, corridors. All species kind of represented actually.
You ever see killifish?
No.
Am I going to be the first person where you see killifish?
Yeah. I think we've had one shrimp, and then
like a neocaridina or like an amano shrimp.
Yeah. And then what else do we see? It varies. Was it lots of goldfish?
Lots of goldfish.
Lots of goldfish with their swim bladder problems.
That was okay. So and so. Wow. What causes swim bladder?
Woo! This is a excellent question. It's multifactorial. I'll give you an example. Okay, here's the analogy for dogs and cats, right? Swim bladder for fish effectively affects their mobility, right?
Right.
Where they are in the vertical column, how they swim. For dogs and cats, I suppose the equivalent would be musculoskeletal nervous system. And when you become atactic as a dog or cat, meaning that your balance is off, that can
not much you can do.
You know what? It depends, and it depends on what the underlying issue is, and it could be anything from my vestibular system in my middle ear. It has an infection. It's inflamed. I had a mini stroke. I've got something compressing my spinal cord and my back. I became diabetic, and so the high sugar created neurotoxicity, and so my nerves don't function, and therefore my muscular contractions don't work right. I grew something big in my abdomen. There's a physical pressure there, and so I'm studying. I can't hold the weight. My endocrine system is shot, and so I make too much endogenous steroids, and so my muscles don't work. They're weaker. They don't work properly. It's everything and anything. And so with fish, It's anything and everything. It's gonna be the same thing.
It's
And
tough to diagnose.
yeah, tough to diagnose. And so, and I want to investigate further, like just what it's gonna be typical.
Would you say it's one of the most common things you see?
swim bladder?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or the most common thing you see?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And I feel bad when I see it. Oh, I feel bad because it is one of those things where there are some things telemedicine isn't the best route for or suitable for, and then you should be tank side.
And actually, that's a good point. Why do you think that something like swim bladder is not? I know you mentioned it to me earlier before the episode, but why do you maybe just
swim bladder issues?
Yeah, or like why do you think something like swim bladder is not something that you can do over like telemedicine? Or rather, yeah.
You know, you could get some advice over telemedicine, but in terms of like diagnosing that goldfish, just like that example with like the dog or cat, it could be any of these systems. So really, a physical exam and some diagnostics are needed.
Test the water parameters and all that.
Definitely gonna have to be doing that first line, and I've done a little bit of that in London, Ontario, probably over Christmas. There's a girl in London who's got this beautiful goldfish that does figure eights on the bottom of the tank, this big, but can't get back up, and so it's getting some lesions. And so we're treating those lesions with some antibiotics right now, so they don't get worse. But we're trying to figure out where to go.
Down there?
Yeah, and I want to do it, and it's going to take sedation protocols, ultrasound, some gear, some equipment, and it just takes time to build up these things. I want to do it.
And so so swim bladder is one of those things where you don't really have. I mean, like assuming you did go in person, you did like did your full analysis and everything.
Yeah.
Is there a cure for it, or is it just one of those things where unfortunately the fish is probably going to pass away eventually?
It depends.
Yeah,
Depends
so
on
there
the
is
line.
okay.
Yeah, you know what? And here's the thing. The outcome is one thing, but whenever you're faced, this is true with dogs, cats, fish, whatever the species, in that moment when that illness occurs, this is that opportunity to become that pet's advocate, and you step up to it and you be like, I don't know what that outcome's going to be, but I'm here to take care of you. And so that means I'm going to be your advocate. I'm going to ask questions. I'm going to investigate.
Sure,
I'm going to get some opinions, regardless of where it goes. And so that's the same thing with these guys. You know, regardless of what the outcome is going to be, I want to try. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. No, that's very very cool. I love that. Okay. So we are about 45 minutes, which is where I like to keep my episodes.
Yes.
But I do have a few more questions for you before we end it up
Yeah.
here. And then I'm going to start with what probably should be the last question, but will you be down to do a part 2 with me?
Oh my God, absolutely, part 2.
Okay,
we got some great origin story stuff, Marvel style.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, the original story, and then maybe next time we can get into more of the
consciousness in fish.
Yes.
We talk about
That would
what
be
that's
awesome.
all about. I think, you know, if there's some cool data and research on fish that when you find out about it, you're probably not going to look at them the same way. But fish keepers maybe already look at their fish that way.
Right.
But I got to tell you, there's certain things that I learned that made me look at them differently.
Yeah, no, I would love to hear them, and I'd love to get into a conversation over that as well. And then maybe, as you mentioned, kind of deep dive into some of those more serious cases and kind of see like
deep dive into cases.
Get more of that information out there, right?
Yeah,
awesome.
You got it.
Okay, so a couple more questions.
Yes.
We already asked you what is the most common problem you're seeing.
Yeah.
Now, is it? We said it was swim bladder. That is an internal issue, correct?
Oh yeah. Okay, so swim bladder, a lot of fin rot, especially with betas.
Okay.
Anything with beautiful flowing long fins.
I see that a lot of it.
Yeah.
And like, sorry, not see it.
Yeah.
I hear it a lot when people come in to ask us like, "Oh, what's going on?" or like whatever, and they show me a picture. And it's
you know what I've
usually
seen a lot of?
Long flowing fins.
Yes, you know what I've seen a lot of?
What is that?
Calaminus worms. The red worms stick with the butt.
Okay,
And a lot.
Okay, and those are called, those are like internal parasites, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, and how?
They're stubborn.
How do you locate something like that just based off of? Let's say I'm walking into a pet store. Is there any way for me to locate these calamus worms or any internal parasites just by looking at a fish?
Yeah, when it's bad.
When it's bad, you can see it just kind of physically.
You can see it physically. You literally see these little red worms sticking out their butt, and I surprisingly see a lot of it. I say surprising. It's just I didn't know what I was going to see.
Yeah, no, for sure.
It's a lot, and a lot of some of the standard medications to treat that, for example, levamisole, It's hard. I can get it. It's harder to get. The shelf life is so. It's got to be stored a certain way. We're still working on it, but I have alternatives, and we're working through those alternatives. But these are stubborn worms that I believe have a certain degree of resistance to some common meds that I think they've been used for a while. So we're working through those protocols, getting feedback from people.
Very cool.
Pardon me, with those worms. So saw a lot of those.
Okay.
You know what's interesting? Dogs and cats, puppies and kittens. What's common when you get them?
They get dewormed. Yeah.
They get
So one of the
dewormed.
first thing you do.
First things that we do. And
so why don't we deworm our fish?
Yes, there is a philosophy to that. You're gonna hear people in different lanes about that. Like, I will use meds. I don't like to use them, but I gotta tell you, in the dog or cat world, commonplace, easy peasy. It's the standard.
And I'll tell you, it's becoming more and more common in the reptile world as well. People are
Is
going to So from my understanding, not captive bred animals, but a lot more people are opting to deworm their wild caught animals as soon as they bring them in.
Yeah.
And I mean, you're seeing the benefits, like mountain horn dragon, something I was telling you about earlier. The mother to the babies that I have. That sounded so wrong.
Wrong or right?
Well, so the female was originally wild caught, came into the store. She laid the eggs, so she was gravid from the wild, and then I believe she passed away almost immediately after that. So that's probably the stress of just coming in gravid and all of that. I know that this is a very common thing for mountain horn dragons, and they're seeing more and more that the people who are deworming them are having a higher success of keeping them afterwards. So it is starting to enter the reptile world, and I can definitely see it starting to come in with into the fish world as well, into just at least the collected fish or the wild caught
This is
fish.
good information.
Yeah.
You know why I like this information? Okay, as a vet, what's the training all about? It's actually comparative. So meaning that between dogs, cats, birds, lizards, fish, just everything. When you learn about one species, it actually it allows you to make certain comparisons. It's a very much a comparative.
And I feel like
approach.
reptiles are probably dosage-wise would probably be closer to fish because of the smaller body sizes.
I cannot believe. Okay, fish was bad enough not finding information, but there is a bit because fish are farmed through aquaculture.
Right.
So there are aquaculture.
And the hobby has been around for much longer as well.
Yeah. Reptiles. I get a little eyelash crested gecko upstairs. He had a bad shed. There was a lesion under his arm. Went to go treat him. The information that out there is so. It's a paucity.
Almost non-existent.
It's almost non-existent.
And you know what? I feel not to throw anything in any direction, but I feel like one of the main reasons that is a thing in the reptile world is because a lot of people will have become very opinionated in certain whether this is right or this is right, and you know, as an animal keeper, you have read your sliders, you know that there's no one right way to keep an animal. There's multiple ways that are effective, and like something that might work for you here in Canada might not work for somebody down in Australia because we have different humidity, different temperatures, everything here. But they're taking these this one care sheet and throwing it around like it's the only way to do things, and so that is negatively affecting. Again, people in Canada might not be able to do the same thing that someone in Australia. Let's, for example, you can't keep the humidity up as high. That's probably not true, but you know what I mean. Difference in climates or difference in even accessibility to supplies or different things. So I feel like these people are putting it all, are making it just, the only information you're finding is that information or nothing at all. I don't know if that was phrased properly or if it made any sense, but...
There's a phrase that comes to mind. There's a cool specialist I work with for not long, a couple of months. His name is Eric Tremendron. What did he used to tell me all the time? He goes, be pragmatic and not dogmatic. Do what works with what's in front of you and not adhere to just a set of rules or principles.
I like
be
that.
pragmatic and not dogmatic.
I like that. Okay.
Yeah. I like those turtles. I've had like you mentioned, my Red sliders. I've had those turtles since 1984, 85, when I was watching Transformers as a little kid, eating ice cream, and I still have them.
And they have been across the country with them.
Across the country, road trip, Vancouver Island, and flew them all the way back. Love those little turtles.
Awesome. Yeah. That's awesome. All right. Well, Dr. Kris, I want to say thank you very much
Fatty,
for coming on.
yes.
I appreciate it so much. This is not the last time you'll be seeing him, and I'll make sure that it's very soon as well. I know he's a busy man, but I'll keep nagging and keep emailing him till he comes back on very soon.
Definitely. Thank you. Thanks for having me on.
No, for sure. And so just real quickly, where I know you already have a lot of people sending you applications, all of that, but if anybody did have a sick fish, where can they find you? And then other anybody with a dog or cat, and if you could just throw all your information out there.
Absolutely. It's CanadianFishVet.com, and that's where you find the website and the ability to reach me through a case report that you can send that I personally look at, and I go through all the details for you. And then my mobile clinic is the 100X Vet in Ottawa, and we're driving out every day. We've got some amazing RVTs in the city, and a fantastic advocate on the phone named Diane. We've got a lot of good people working with us.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, I'll definitely be sending people your way, and I'll have the 100X app and the Canadian Fish Vet information all in the show notes. Thank you all for listening, and we will see you next week.